I am thrilled that today's episode, we have Erika and Jordan Koop joining us, and they are going to share with us all about their journey with the connection codes from the very start to now, what has inspired them. I shouldn't even say inspired, like driven them to become connection codes certified coaches. So we're going to talk a little bit about the certification. We're going to be talking about when to get a coach, why get a coach, what that even looks like. And we're going to hear more of their struggles, like early on in the journey of what things can look like when it's bumpy at first and what benefit you receive if you keep going. So that is where we are headed today. Welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. This is the podcast where we break open those emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and usually joining me, the founders, the creator, Dr. Glenn Hill and Phyllis Hill, who founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here. All right, I am so excited to be here with, can I say my friends now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
With my friends, connection coders, Jordan and Erika Koop. And you two have done so much already in the connection codes, and I know you've been on a couple of episodes. There have now been 2 that have come out, which I will link in the show notes. But I would love, in case this is someone's first time listening, if you can share just a little bit about yourselves and your journey and what's led you to where you are today.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Almost 2 years ago now, we read the book, and I thought, well, I've got to try this, and took it home and showed it to our kids and my wife. Huge success with our kids immediately. Very felt connection. We spoke their language. They were walking forwards. We were walking sideways. For us, a long, bumpy road. With many ups and downs, but just enough incentive to keep us walking forward through it all. More connection codes.
When you start walking with connection codes, you can hit these really bumpy things and you're like, man, this does not work. This is not for me. The problem is you can't unlearn it. You can't unhear it. And so we were like, well, we can't go back, but we can't figure out how to move forward. And so we were stuck. And so we reached out and had some one-on-one sessions with Glenn, and that made a world of difference.
I love that. I've heard people say, someone specifically who's also been on our podcast, he said, it's like once the lights come on, you don't want to turn them off again. And it's like transformed his career, like everything about, because the lights came on for him. So I am curious, how did you even hear about the connection codes to begin with?
So my mom was listening to a podcast, and Glenn was a guest on that podcast. And she sent me this podcast. This is so good. And so then I started just searching for everything that Glenn and Phyllis were on, and what is this? I was so intrigued. And then I found the book and said, Jordan, you have to read this book. It's by a clinical sexologist.
And I was hooked immediately.
Yes, for me. That's a yes.
Yeah. I'm in. There's nothing in the book about sex, but it's all the preliminary work that needs to be done to have a great sex life. So glad I got catfished into reading his book.
I've never thought about it that way, that we should like advertise it as the foreplay hand guide.
There you go.
This is the best foreplay that you can give your spouse, for sure.
This is the preheat on the oven.
Yes. Wow. I love that. Okay, new marketing plan already in the works now. Website's going down. We're redoing it. No.
So fun.
Okay, so you said that you dove in and you immediately took it home. What was it? Like, what was the thing that you were like, okay, this is different. This is effective. This is changing. I can see it in Erika or my kids.
Well, for me, Jordan and I were the king and queen of the courtroom, the logistics. The problem was I was a worse lawyer than he actually was. And I could just tell that I was getting so lost in the logistics, and I would just give up. And I'd be like, you know what? whatever, you must be right. You have more evidence lined up. I lost. I always lost.
And sometimes we described it as though she was the peacekeeper, or that peace meant more to her, or that she'd just roll over and let me be right for the sake of future peace.
Yeah.
And that had been our dynamic for so many years.
And we knew it. Like, we did talk about that. We talked about how that was happening. Jordan understood, and he believed it his own self. We were getting lopsided resolutions. We were getting resolutions that leaned his way to his narrative that made sense to him, and that kind of solved his pain. And he knew. You would say yourself all the time, I don't want lopsided resolutions. But I do believe, he would say things like, I believe that the best version of us is both of us together.
Yes.
But then when a conflict would arise, we would go back to the courtroom because we didn't know what else to do. And so I knew we were missing something. And when I heard the connection codes, I was like, this is it. And I knew it. Like, my spirit already knew this isn't the point. I knew we were getting lost in the logistics.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
And this was like, oh, this is it.
Yes.
This is what's been missing.
Yes. So do you remember the first time you did the core emotion wheel together?
Yes.
I did the core emotion. I did the experience assignments in the book because I was listening to it on Audible, and I was actually in my work truck with a work buddy. We kind of like laughed awkwardly about it, and we did the experience assignments with like my apprentice, which was super weird, funny, but also enough of a pull to be like, oh shoot, this is something deeper.
Yes.
And then going home, I remember it more clearly doing it with our kids than
I remember. I remember doing it together super well. I remember he did it, and he did it quickly, nailed every emotion easily. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, like none of these really surprised me. And then I did mine, and I cried through the whole thing.
Wow.
And I remember you being super surprised. And it was like, oh, wow. I feel like it revealed how lost I was because I knew what you were feeling, because you are a good communicator of what you're feeling. But I had no idea what I was feeling. So much of it was lost. And just then the journey, the next few core emotion wheels, I mean, it was really hard for me to find them. Some of them were so hard to find.
I think that's amazing. I always am curious, and I don't get to ask many people of like, what was your first experience like doing it? Because that was the moment. Wes and I did it, 2 weeks into our journey. And that was the moment I was like, this is different than everything I've ever done. Like, I am officially hooked on this. Wes wasn't there yet, because we're probably similar in the fact of what I said wasn't a surprise to him. And so he was not fully embedded, where for me, I was like, okay, we will never be the same. My life will never be the same. Right. And in fact, I watched the last bit because they were doing it live at the time, Glenn and Phyllis. I watched the last by myself because he was traveling or he was doing something. And I kept saying, you've got to watch this. You've got to watch this. Right. And he was the reason we even signed up. And so it took him more time to get in than me.
Yeah.
But it's such an awakening of like, okay, we needed this and we didn't even know how bad we needed it.
Yeah.
And I love Jordan hearing, I love hearing that you did the experience assignments in your truck with your apprentice. Like, that's amazing.
We definitely laughed about some of it and how awkward this was. So we kind of prefaced it, but we still did it.
Yeah, and you still had some powerful moments.
We did. We had powerful moments, and my apprentice was like, definitely like, can I kind of get out of this? And I was like, nope, I'm the boss.
Yeah, I love that. But it also, just because it shows me that, we do the podcast and we put it out every single week, but there is so much power in what you actually learn from either the course or the book. Like, what you're getting here is not all of it. Those experience assignments.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Are the game changer. For how the two of you can communicate with each other from then on. And I did all the pieces of it, the cycle, the identity, everything. So I love that was like, okay, this is different for you.
I think one of the things that was so powerful for me and why it actually changed and made a difference is because so many books, I've read them. And then when it gets to the like, here's the application at the end of the chapter, try and answer these questions in your own head. I just didn't do them. But Glenn's stressed that you need to experience this.
Yes.
And I just did it by random chance. I don't know what led me to actually do the experience assignment. Probably somewhat because it was called an experience assignment instead of a question. I was just like, well, I have to experience that.
Yeah. And whenever we recommend the book, we stress that so hard. You have to do the experience assignments out loud with a person, and just a night and day difference.
Absolutely. I totally agree. That is such a game changer.
Yeah.
And so from there, y'all then brought it into your church and led a small group through it. So the two of you, tell everybody where you live. You're in Canada. You're like...
Yes. So we are in northern British Columbia, Canada. Okay. So it's pretty far up there.
Yes.
We're on the we live in the second city on the Alaska Highway.
Wow. Okay. That's mind blowing. Like when you've talked about the weather and the cold and all of those things, whew. But you took it and you brought it into your church, and then you led a small group with it, which you still are doing now. You're hosting events and helping people and really building a community around you of people that experience the same shared language. So what has that been like to go from having the two of you that know to now you have like friends and other couples?
Yeah, I mean, that's been super amazing. We brought it to our church leadership, and they were right away like, okay, let's do it. And so at first, the church leadership and staff all did it together, which, oh my word, it just changed the atmosphere of our staff meetings. They used to be logistical, and then all of a sudden we were just connecting. It felt like a totally different atmosphere. And then we ran it again, and there was 20 couples from the church that did it. And all of a sudden you could feel the culture changing, the culture of the church as a whole. Now, that's still a small percentage of everybody. So we're really hoping to keep going because, man, when you're in a room, if you're in a room where 80% of people speak this language, it's just a totally different atmosphere. It's phenomenal.
I love that. So tell me your next steps then. What has transpired since then? Like from that, I think y'all teaching it, leading that, I think like a little flame was ignited.
Oh, yes.
That now gas has been poured on. So share with me your journey from that moment.
I think for us, we needed to see the end goal. I know so many people where I'm like, that is what I want to be like in business. This is what I want to be like with my spiritual life. I can point to this person here and say, that is how I want to parent my kids. But I couldn't point to somebody that I knew personally that walked this kind of authenticity out day by day. And I couldn't point to that person in my life that I knew their story, that I could go to them with questions because I knew them. And so we eventually decided to come down here to meet Glenn and Phyllis and all the people that are around them that walk and talk this language.
Yeah, we basically just decided, it was worth investing 3 months of our lives and bringing our 4 kids and just putting our lives on hold to be like, okay, what is this? Because we could see enough gold to be like, this is worth it. Let's go immerse ourselves in the language.
Yes.
Let's not keep it to a Saturday class. Let's immerse ourselves so that we can become fluent. And while we have been here, we have been part of the first Connection Codes coaching cohort, which has been absolutely phenomenal. And we're wrapping that up. And so we're hoping to just run with this and really actually bring it to as many people as we can, because this is it.
Yeah. So I want to know more about that. And I'm going to start first by asking you, what is it for you that makes you even want to coach other people? Like, what have you witnessed either in your own life, in leading the group through your church and through going through the certification? What is driving you to be like, okay, I want to coach this to people?
In walking people through the foundations course, our road was so bumpy at the beginning, and then watching so many other people go through the foundations course and have the bumps and the like, what about this? This doesn't work for me. Okay, we tried this and it was good and then went south. So many people had those those troubles that we started, sharing our own experiences. And then we started acting like coaches.
Yeah.
But we
just
didn't
sort of
have the skills to coach well. And so that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to become Connection Codes certified coaches, so that we could actually teach people through that and actually.
Yeah. I mean, we just found ourselves sitting with couples because they're like, we're really stuck. And we're like, okay, well, we'll just sit with you through this. And then we were like, we are not qualified. We're not doing a good job. And we don't want to do more damage because we're kind of fumbling our way through this. We needed to go and get equipped. And boy, did we go get equipped.
Right. I think I didn't want to do a disservice, because when we stumbled and had misses with each other, we got private counseling with Glenn. And that kind of feels awkward to say on the podcast, because now I have lived in his house, so I'd call him Glenn, but it's Dr. Glenn.
Yeah.
But we had gone and got private counseling from him to walk us through where we were getting gummed up. And so we didn't want to do a disservice by coaching people not as well as we could.
I absolutely love hearing about that journey and wanting to really meet people where they're at, because that's one of the things that we just finished talking about even before recording this podcast, that these tools are simple. They are so simple to use, but it is totally normal to get stuck in the beginning of your journey and be like, is this even working? I don't even know if this is working. We're still having conflict, and I thought this was going to take our conflict away. And that process, especially when you have years of pain and years of damage already there. We have an episode where we talk about pulling the weeds out of your garden. And you just feel like I'm just pulling weeds after weeds after weeds. But the goal of the connection codes is that as you're pulling those weeds out, while that process is very, very painful, you're trying not to put any new weeds into the garden.
Right.
You're preventing new damage from forming.
Right.
And so you were walking with couples through those painful, first 6 months, first year, where they are spending so much energy pulling out weeds. And by having a coach there to navigate, okay, let's start with this area first.
Right.
Let's work on this one first. And then we'll move on to your next area before we get it all cleared. And again, that doesn't mean a new weed won't pop up here and there.
Right.
But the connection codes as a whole is, while it's not easy always, it helps you prevent so much future damage.
Right.
It stops the pattern.
And the thing is in theory, if you are not dammed up and you're flowing like a river, it is simple. The problem is we have years of trauma and damage, and now we're trying to connection code authentically in real time. But the problem is we're both having such a trauma reaction to each other's emotion because of all the things from the past. And so we found that we needed help with that part. And somebody else sitting there with you who is not having an emotional reaction to your pain. To help you feel heard. Because if I have someone else, and I mean, we in our coaching cohort, we're doing this for each other all the time, and it's just phenomenal that someone else is sitting there and they can me and they can hear me without getting flooded on their own. And then they can help create space. And if one of us is getting emotional and stealing the other person's space, they are there to just help us create safety and create space.
Yeah.
That's just so powerful.
With us, as well as so many other people that we walk through, the hardest part was when you have simultaneous flooding. Where I'm getting flooded and I'm trying to process it out. Like Glenn says, 5 seconds, I'm just going to process it out. Well, in the first 2 seconds of me processing it out, Erika has a trauma response, and then her dam bursts right then. And it's like, hang on, my dam's bursting. You're not allowed to have a dam bursting. Right. And so somebody that was not flooded sitting with us was so crucial to riding the bumps as we grew into having our river flow freely.
Yeah. Where are you at today? What is life? Which we did an episode recently of like where you are finding yourself getting stuck. And that is totally normal. Again, like we are two humans trying to live life with each other.
Yes.
But what has it been like now using those tools, the tools that you've learned versus 3 years ago, Jordan and Erika?
Wow. Well, the truth is, to answer that question, we were on kind of a trajectory before of big misses being fewer and farther between and way less severity. But then we moved in with Glenn and Phyllis for 2.5 months. And so that fast-tracked things a ton. Just, there are a lot of times where we thought we were getting to the core. And now we realize we really weren't. And here's the thing. So much of my pain and so much of how I experience Jordan has nothing to do with Jordan. I'm bringing things from my family of origin or other things or my disposition. I'm not sure where they're all coming from. And the same is happening with Jordan. And so what has happened here is we have once experiencing so much safety by being in the home of Glenn and Phyllis and them helping us have safety. I have just gotten to watch Jordan unfold into his authentic self and me. And we're realizing, oh, wow, we still were actually pretty far from our core. We were learning to process the emotion, but I would say they were still kind of up here. Like they were still kind of mid iceberg. We still weren't at the very bottom, the real core of what was happening. And honestly, a big thing that has actually helped is I have started doing coaching with one of the coaches, with Echo, actually. And Jordan has started doing coaching with one of the coaches in our cohort because it just gave me this room and this space to get really curious about myself in just like there's more people in this relationship than just Jordan and Erika, because Erika also has a relationship with Erika. And I need to get curious about me and what is my narrative? How do I speak to my own self? How do I disregard my own emotion? Am I even tuning into my own self? Where do I hear these messages? And to just have a space to work through that has been so pivotal. And so to say where we are at now, I don't even have words. Like,
I need you to find those, Erika.
yeah. Wow.
I would say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would say Erika has become so much more embodied. And I didn't know what that meant, but she's more in tune with her own experience, regardless of what I'm doing, saying, or anything. She is just seeing her own experience. And that way she can actually articulate. And you know, there's we've been taught there's tertiary emotions, there's primary emotions, and then there's the core. And you know, we were up here and we moved towards primary emotions sometimes. And
The primary would be the core. Secondary, tertiary.
Sorry, tertiary, secondary, primary. Oh, terrible. But we needed to move deeper towards the core, and you can't do that if you don't know what you're actually feeling, because you've just been trying to blank it out or trying to just be peaceful for the sake of the relationship. And so that would be my guess if I could put words.
Yeah. So for what that has looked like for me is energy and confidence and passion and creativity. Sitting down with Echo and digging for Erika's core and Erika's authentic self results in energy.
Yes, I relate to that so much. And that is another area that I'm like, I want to advertise. We are an energy producer over here. Like we help people get energy because we're spending so much time in tension and conflict. We don't even realize how that is depleting us, because what you were describing, the work that goes into it, I'll be honest, like that didn't sound appealing to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
You know, like it is work, and that I wouldn't want to sign up for that work. But the outcome that you're receiving, for how many months of work has it been?
2.5 months of really intentional work.
Yep. And you learned about the connection codes how long ago? Started either the book.
The book was just shy of 2 years ago now.
Okay, 2 years ago. And so 2 years of digging into this work,
Yes.
listening to the podcast, bringing it into your church, building a community, and now the 2-month intensive.
Yes.
And the other side of that, because that does like, it's like, who wants to get their master's? Like that's 2 years. Like that's what I can equate that to.
Right.
But on the other end of that, you have a brand new, like, I don't want to say life, but like,
No, we do. We do.
okay, say it.
Yeah. And the thing is, so for Jordan, what that has looked so much like is some of the struggles we were having. He was struggling with anger a lot, or wanting things to be done a certain way. And it was just feeling so intense and kind of suffocating for the rest of us. But he was suffocating, and him learning to find his core and how he was experiencing the world and experiencing pain.
I think that, as well as I could never get to the fourth phrase, which is so important, I could never articulate, I have a need. That just felt so shameful to me to actually request something of somebody else that just went against what I had believed from my family of origin. So for me, getting to that fourth phrase has been, I've been turbocharged to have to, while I've been down here living in this environment where so many people are authentic.
Yeah. And the wild thing about your needs is I spent so much of my day thinking I was filling his needs, and he spent so much of his day thinking what he was doing was because it was my needs, and like literally not talking about it. And so we're just
but you're doing the wrong needs. That's why it's an
Yes.
energy giver, because I like remember with Wes and I early on of just being, I'm doing everything.
Right.
I'm doing the physical, I'm doing all of this. That was not at all what he needed.
Yeah.
And so I actually have more energy now because I know exactly what he needs thanks to those experience assignments.
Yes.
And I can give that to him. And I'm not wasting time. I'm not wasting energy doing a bunch of stuff that is unnecessary.
Right.
And so on the journey, it's like you see this initial shift. So if you're listening and you're like either debating starting the connection codes, or you're early in your journey, you're going to get those initial boosts.
Right.
These where you're even a month in, you're like, okay, this is different. This is different than we were a month ago. And I will tell you, if you keep going, even whenever it feels difficult, or you feel like, oh, I'm just pulling out weeds and this is too painful.
Yep.
If you keep going, 2 months from now, you'll be different than you were 2 months ago.
Yeah.
A year from now, Wes and I are 4 years in. This month is 4 years in. And I've talked about, we haven't had a fight since November of last year. So 2 Novembers ago. And we are in a place today that is different than we were a year ago on our journey. And so the more and more you put in the time, so it's taken you 2 years to get to where you are today, but even 6 months ago, before you came here, you were in a better place than you were a year and a half earlier.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about these tools is it's not something that's a Band-Aid. And it is a full-on like surgery. It is a repair that you're going to come out looking, feeling, acting totally different and showing up in a brand new way. And so I want to hear more about the coaching side of it. And you've gone through our certified coaching program. So tell me like a little bit of what that has been like for you.
So much language shift for me. I understood the emotions and the purpose, the connection purpose of sharing your emotions, but the language to create safety.
Yes.
And we did it so much from the aspect of you're a coach and you have a client who needs felt safety. But in practicing so hard to get the client to feel safe with you as a coach, we in turn to our own relationship had to change how we were using language to bring the other person that same felt safety that would allow them to feel like they could reveal the core.
And then because of that, we have a class of 15
Yeah, 15 or 16.
people who we are together twice a week. And we would do enactments with Glenn in front of each other and with each other. There was so much practical, which is just phenomenal. But because of that, we were all vulnerable with each other right away. And I've never experienced safety with 15 strangers like that in my life, because everybody knows how to be so safe. And when you watch what you can accomplish with that level of safety, I mean, there's a small percentage that have been here in Nashville that I've gotten to meet, but the rest of them, I'm like, I am convinced that they could come and stay in my home and they're my best friend because of that level of safety in that group. Yeah. And so it was almost like it just gave me a taste of, if the world speaks connection codes, what will happen? Yeah. Like, I'm convinced I could tell any single person, I mean, they did hear my deepest, darkest secrets, my biggest pain, my biggest shame, and I would just be met with so much space and so much kindness and so much safety. That's a phenomenal experience, even if we didn't become coaches. Like, even if that wasn't the end goal. Yeah. Just to go through that experience.
Which I love hearing y'all say that, because my favorite thing about our coaching cohort is the diversity of experiences.
Yes.
And from where we live to our childhood experiences to what we support politically to our religious beliefs to married, single, divorced, kids, no kids. I mean, we have so many demographics represented even in those 16 people. And we're teaching even in that the safety that you can have with each other. And it was our heart to have so many people that way. When someone is listening and they're like, okay, I want someone who is unmarried, can help me through dating. Like, okay, we have somebody for you. I want someone who is married, that has been in the ministry, that's no longer in the ministry because I am in pain from that. Okay, we have someone for you. Like, we wanted to have different types of coaches because the connection codes as a whole is such a diverse, like how people can apply it to their life and who all needs it. You're walking a very different path. Our paths all look so different. And so to have coaches that can partner with you, that can genuinely say like, oh, I see you. I've been in those shoes. I understand that emotion that you're feeling. And they can ooh you from not from a sense of superiority, but from a sense of understanding. Is something that I was just so thrilled about with our coaches. And so tell me, like, what has it been like as far as now you're going to go, our cohort's almost done, and you're going to become coaches yourself. Like, what has the experience been like from the first week of how you felt in becoming coaches to wrapping it up?
You're all looking at me. I got to say something good here. The experience has just been internal and external and integrated both of those. So there's so much looking in because you're practicing being a client to other people who are practicing coaching on you. So you do get actual like client time, which is discovering yourself, where your unique self actually differs from all the other people, and somebody's speaking right into that, to being so external where you're sitting and making space for other people. And it was the integration of both the internal work and the external work that's been so powerful for me.
Yeah. And I would describe it as very equipping. I would say at the beginning, I was really lacking confidence. Just kind of like, is this ever going to be a thing that I could do? And I actually thought this would be mostly a Jordan thing and he was going to rock this. And I would, sit with him and support him. But I never imagined me being able to sit with somebody on my own. But now we're not quite done. I'm like, oh, yes. Oh, yes. Like, I feel taught really well. I feel equipped really well.
Yes.
And it's because of the model. The model is so good. I don't have to come in with all of this wisdom and insight and advice. My goal is to create safety so that you can find your own authentic self and you can actually find what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, I can do that. Oh, so much joy to do that. So much joy to sit with somebody and have them experience so much safety with me that they feel like they can just take a deep breath and exhale and relax into their authentic self.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we're using the same tools so that eventually we're out of the equation. That is the model that we want to be. We want to be coaches for a time. We don't want to be your coach for 10 years.
Yeah.
We want to be your coach for 10, 12 weeks, and out the door you go, having the tools to succeed because you're actually in tune with your needs. You're actually making safe space for your partner or your children or your business partners' needs. And you don't need the coach to come with you every day, every moment.
Yeah. No, totally agree with that. And that is the goal, but they're there. Whenever you reach that dam, whenever you reach, the extra weeds, like you have someone in your corner, because it's such a pain experience for me, core level anger, knowing how much we will invest in our career, in our schooling, in our health, but we just let our marriage or our relationship to ourself even just go to the side. And so to have these tools that are so practical and people that are willing to help you, hearing that how much it affects every area of your life. If you can improve yourself, your career is going to dynamically shift. Your marriage is going to dynamically shift. How you parent dynamically shifts because you've now connected to yourself. And so I love now that we have people that can partner with individuals and with couples to experience that connection. And so I know it's time to do the core emotion wheel with each other, but I am curious of what your driver is for each of you, of why you wanted to be a coach. Like I know the experience that it had in your own life, but what you see in those around you of like who you desperately are like, I want to help this person because I see them and I want to partner with them and I know what they can experience in life. And that's who I'm passionate about.
Wow. I'd say for me, I'm super passionate about just women, specifically wives and mothers who just feel like have bought into this idea that we have to disappear in order to be a good mom, in order to be a good wife. Your pain points and your joy points, they're just not even a part of the equation. I remember one of my jobs was to write down my joy points and write down my pain points to see my energy. And I was like, I don't even know what my joy points are. I find what refuels you. I don't even know what refuels me. And so my passion is so much to just spread this message of your family will be the most served. Your family will get the most out of you when you are able to show up authentically as you are and entitled to your own experience. And you do get to exist. You get to exist, and that will actually serve your family ultimately the best.
Yeah, I love that.
Wow. For me, I'm so passionate about people's marriages. When people settle and go, this is the best it's ever going to be.
Wow.
I can't level up because I don't have the time to go find the right tools to level up my marriage. I desire, a better marriage here, there, and everywhere, but I am stuck in all the logistics of, providing for my family or going to my job and all the weeds that we get tangled up in that I can't go search for the next thing. I'm passionate about actually bringing that next tangible, hope-filled goal to your marriage where you can be like, oh, I can do that. I can level up one more time. And that's where I'm so passionate about.
Yeah, I love that. What would you say to someone who is considering signing up to be a certified coach?
Do it.
Yeah.
It
feels like a big investment. It feels like a big leap, but it's worth it.
I would say if you're thinking about becoming a coach, think of it as an investment into yourself, into your future. Even if you don't succeed as a coach, the success you'll have in just talking with the people that you interact with on the day-to-day for the rest of your life changes because you talk differently. You have a different language.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, would you mind doing the core emotion wheel with us before we?
No, can you go first? Because you're just so much better and faster. It gives me a minute to think.
Okay. I have so much joy that we're at the tail end of becoming Connection Codes coaches, and that the actual light at the end of the tunnel has gotten bright and like, oh my gosh, what a wonderful, like bright, warm light at the end of the tunnel. Lots of work gone into it. So much joy to actually just be like, we're doing it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of sad actually losing all the like intentional time spent with all my cohort. Like that's just really sad for me, knowing that I won't put in that much time to the people that have become my friends in this cohort.
Yeah.
To just watch us all, you know, be dispersed to go and do the work we've all signed up to go do. That's just kind of sad to lose that.
Get that.
Lonely. I have lonely just in being Western Canadian, rural. That's my field. I know there's so many people who are in trades. I mean, I was in trades, or, you know, truck drivers that are on the road 16 hours a day. Those are my people. Like, I know those people, but being in camp or doing camp work and not being able to come home to your wife, like, I have lonely in the people that are going to find those people and say, no, I've got some hope for you. I'd love to see you succeed. So tons of lonely in just those missed people. I have fear that I won't be able to serve all of them well. So y'all need to become coaches, okay? I did say y'all again. Yes. Hurt. I feel hurt just when I miss you. I feel hurt because I know that I'm actually hurting myself. And that's a driver. I know I'm hurting myself, you, and my kids. I'm hurting all of us, but it's so much hurt when I actually do it. That drives me to my anger, where it's like, I've got to do this better. I want to be a better example. And I know I'm still going to miss, but I'm driven to just use the tools over and over again, use our new language. So lots of that. Shame that we do miss still. We're pilgrims on the journey. Shame when we miss, and guilt just that we do miss, and I'm not always going to be a great example for other people, and I have guilt about that, and it drives me to do better.
Thank you.
Wow. Lots of sad to be leaving. It feels like, wow, 2.5 months, but man, I'm sad to have the course over, but sad to be leaving this environment.
Yeah.
Fear. I have a little bit of fear to go home and to try to bring this home and to do this well. I feel a little bit like I left an Erika-shaped hole, and I feel a little bit of fear that I don't fit in that hole anymore. And there's some loneliness in that for me too, just figuring out what that's going to look like. Anger, just that we don't know how to be safe for each other as a culture, just as a whole, all of us, we have missed this royally.
Yeah.
And just, there is guilt for me in that, and thinking about even just recently that I'm still missing it. I'm still not just oohing and not being present sometimes. Shame just that it takes a long time. Shame that it's taking me a long time to actually get this. Joy, hurt. I've said sad. Hurt. I think it's funny because I think hurt in the leaving, like actually leaving, feels more like a hurt. Hurt that we live so far away. And that seems like it should be sad, but it's a bit sharper. It's a bit sharper than sad. Hurt to be leaving the relationship with Glenn and Phyllis. Hurt that we didn't get more time.
No.
Man, and just hurt that we can't spend more time with the people in our cohort. Like, man, it's just far away. And it actually feels sharper than sad.
Wow. And joy?
So much joy just to have been here, to have done this, to have gotten to be part of the first coaching cohort. And so much joy to think about how far we've come.
Yes.
Like, wow.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you also both mentioned that you, since diving deeper, found the value in yourselves getting a coach. Like, once you really want to level up to a new stage, Glenn says this all the time, nobody wins a Super Bowl without a coach. No one wins without training extensively. Like, the most successful people in whatever realm they're doing, whether it's fitness or eating, health coaches, like people have a coach that guide them and that level them to the next space. And both of you, neither of you had a coach prior to coming and joining the coaching.
Right.
Yes.
And now you see your own benefit in being a coach and having a coach. Like it shows you firsthand the difference that you experience when you have someone guiding you as well.
Yes, we were not on fire. This did not come from a place of on fire. This is, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We're doing so well. And both of us were like, oh, I want to do coaching. And I signed up for a big package. And so did Jordan right away. It was like, we want coaches.
Yes, because you can see the impact, the direct impact that it makes on your life. And I absolutely love that. And so if you are listening, well, I will say, you said that about coaching, what you would say. If someone's listening and they're debating just doing the connection codes in general, what's one thing you would say to them? Connection codes tools, buying foundations.
Invest. It is an investment. It is not a purchase. It is an investment.
Which that costs you something. It feels a little bit painful. And you have to think about the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, investment. That's good.
Well, yeah. And what we have seen is that pain is the driver to actually get you to do the work.
Yeah, because it's work. It is.
Yes. And with that, you get the greatest outcome you can experience. I mean, just
love it.
Completely life-changing. And so if you are like, okay, I'm listening, I'm interested in either learning more about the connection codes or becoming a certified coach, we have the links in the show notes where you can dive deeper in your journey. You can level up your life and say yes to what your body is needing, you know? And if you're also listening, you're like, okay, we're on the journey, but we're pulling out weeds. And the days, like we're having these wins, but there's still some deep pain that we're experiencing. Reach out. Our certified coaches are on our website, and I will link to Jordan and Erika as well in the show notes. But reach out and find the coach that can help you in your mess, so you are not alone, and that you can come in from that outside perspective like you described and help guide you through it. Because the other side of it is where you'll find the beauty and the deepest level of connection. And so again, Jordan and Erika's information are linked in the show notes. If you're like, oh, I fit the description of what she said or what he said, like that's me, find them. Otherwise, go to our certified coaching page and find the person that connects with you on your own journey. And so thank you for being here. Thank you all for joining me and sharing more of your story. And I am so sad that you're leaving. While they were here, my kids were sick for like 6 weeks, and it was brutal. But we've only got to connect just a handful of times and outside of our Zoom calls every Tuesday and Thursday. But just so much sadness that you're leaving and so much joy that you'll be back.
Yes.
And just hearing more about y'all. So thank you for being here. We do all of this because
you need this.
Are you going to do it, Eric?
You've got this.
You deserve this.
I could not remember.
So let's do this.
So we need to redo that.
Y'all did a great job. Thank you so much. Let's do this.